So hi guys, today we're going to assemble a national brood chamber. National brood chamber consists of 8 pieces altogether. So you've got 2 top rails, which fit an angle internally here, and 2 bottom rails, which are sloped outwards. Okay, you can compare the two. They're very different overall. So this is the top rail, this is the bottom rail. You've got 2 inner walls, which is just square all round, and 2 outer walls. You can see the groove internally to carry the inner wall. First things first, we're just going to glue up the ends here. Big glue into the joints all round. You notice I'm just gluing the top ends because as I slide the pieces in, it'll actually push the glue down ahead of it. Now, so that's the bottom side and the top side here. You can see the two are the exact sitting opposite one another here. We'll start next by putting a nail in just to hold it for the time being. Just putting one straight down the joints. That's just to hold it here for the time being. We're going to turn it over and I'm going to repeat the process on the opposite side of the box. The big thing to keep in mind here now is that the rails are actually the same on top and bottom, so that the top rail is opposite the top one here when you're putting them into place. So nail that in. Just going to flick it over onto his back here. That's the easiest way to set up. So the next step, guys, is we glue internally here. We're just going to run a line along. That's to carry the inner wall. Right the way up. Yeah. When the inner wall's in place, it should be fully flush with the top wall here. So it should be flush right the way along here. So I have that tapped down and it's nice and tight down the corner here. I'm just going to flip it on the side again. And just going to nail it on that. Off and bend the nail, just straighten it up and either pull it or drive it out. We just turn the box over and I'm going to repeat that on the opposite side again. I haven't nailed the bottom side, I'm just keeping it flush along the top at the minute so the bottom's moving independently. Just going to turn the box over. We'll just put this one into place. Just keeping it flush with the top again here. Down into place. flip it over and run the line of nails along here again. Just slip it over here, and now I'm going to put it on the opposite side here. The reason we leave the bottom loose is so that we can determine that after this side is in place. I'm just going to run glue along here on the flat edge, and then we're just going to put some glue on the joints. As I mentioned earlier, there's lots of different ways of putting these boxes together. This just happens to be our way. Because the top is fixed, I put it in on top first, and then I can move this bottom side to suit. So it's going into the right slot. And the same here. I can move the bottom to suit. Just a tap then. Takes it together. First things now, I'm going to nail these two on the opposite sides. Now I'm going to flip it back and you're onto the outer wall. So where the outer wall meets the inner wall here, we're going to put in the line of nails right the way up there. And right out on the two joints here as well, either side here, we're going to also nail. So on all sides of the box. I'm just going to tap them in here all around, and we'll take a wee video of it and you'll see exactly where we're going to nail them. Just going to do the opposite side here, guys, and you'll actually see then exactly what we're doing. So the inner four in a straight line here is to catch the outer wall with the inner wall, and these ones here are catching the side bars, so the bottom and top side bars. So that's what all the nails are here for, Joe. I just thought I'd do it like that so you can actually see them. Is that okay? I'm just going to pop these in now. One other thing to note, when you're nailing the inner wall here, if you're inside your finger joint by about 10 millimeters, you're perfect. And also at the same side of your inside the two joints here, the nails are perfect as well. We're just going to repeat the process on the opposite side here now. Now guys, there's quite a lot of nails, so allow a little bit of time for that coming round. The only other thing we haven't done now is we haven't nailed the inner wall to the bottom side rail here. So we're going to put a row of nails along here. About 4 in each is enough. Now, something I may have forgot to mention now, but it's 1.5 inch. It's 40mm galvanized oval nails we use for this process. So if you are looking for nails, it's 40mm for national boxes. So we're just going to put 4 along. Just going to turn the box over and do the same here again. Alright, that's the box nailed all round. The last thing we got to do, just to make sure everything sits correctly, is square the box. If you can see, if you have any square, there's normally a flat edge on a square. If you set it against it, it'll tell you where you are. So you can see here, there's quite a gap. So we need to straighten that up. See it there. So what I'm going to do here, guys, is just going to turn the box like this, give it a gentle wee push, and that should square it up. When the box is square, you see no daylight here between the two. That box is square there now. Everything's nice and square. The last step is to actually put the frame runners in place. The frame runners is going to go onto the top side here, and it's going to meet where everything sits flush here. So we're just going to use frame nails, put those in place. So the nails that will come for the frames and all is exactly what we use along the inner wall. Just in there, and we use a couple of frame nails just to support it in place. There's normally 4 holes in each runner, so just 4 nails. And the second runner. I'm just doing the opposite one another first, so I know that they're nice and tight to the box and flush. And then the 2 inner ones, follow up with the 2 inner ones. So one quick note, this is a national brood chamber. Our national supers are assembled the exact same way. Our 14 by 12 and Donegal Bees rose box is assembled in the same process as the national brood chamber. The only thing that changes between those 4 boxes is the actual height of the box. So the only place you may need an additional nail or one less is on the nail on the inner wall to the outer wall here. Everything else is the exact same, guys. That's a complete national brood chamber. So, hi guys, today we're going to assemble a national super box. We actually assemble most of our boxes in the same style. We assemble the national super, national brood chamber, the rose box and the 14 by 12. We assemble them all the same way. So if you've seen one, it's pretty much similar for all the rest. But we're going to run up through the box today. So this is the 2 top rails here. You've got 2 bottom rails, 2 inner walls, and 2 outer walls. First things first, I'm just going to do a wee close up here of the top rail and the bottom rail. The bottom rail is angled outwards to run the water off, because when the top one's sitting on, one box is sitting directly on top of the other. So the bottom rail is just angled outwards to let the water run off it. First things first, we're just going to get the outer wall, we're going to glue it up. Just some glue into the joint there. You don't have to spread it out, because as you slide the rail down into place, it's going to spread the glue for you anyways. So now I'm going to get top rail here. Get the top into place. Nice snug. And the bottom rail. Nice. Next step is just I'm going to nail it here and here, just to hold it for the time being while we move the box around and do a few other bits. I'm going to turn the box over now and repeat the process with the glue. Big thing to keep in mind now is that we've got both rails opposite one another. So the bottom rail here and the top rail, so I just have to repeat that to make sure that I put in the top rail first. then the bottom rail. And one more nail in each. So now we're going to turn the box on its back. Now, the top rail of the box is facing me at the moment, and I'm just going to run glue up along a few of the joints here. The glue really is the life of the box over time. Next step now is put on the inner wall. Just put it into place. I want to keep that flush with the inside of the top rail. You can tap it up and down once it's in place, but just the inside of the top rail. So I'm basically keeping it flush here, guys. So that determines whether the frame's up or down in the box and where your frame runner actually sits. I'll throw this down now, we're just going to nail it along. The inner wall is flush with our top rail right the way along. We're just going to repeat the process on the opposite side now. We'll flip her over, we're going to put on the outer wall on the top side here. Just going to glue along here. And the joints. You'll note at this stage the bottom rail is still moving independently. And that's just to make it easier when we start putting this into place. This here can move to suit, the bottom rail can move to suit. As it's down into place. Now we're just going to put 2 nails in. Same as we did the first process, just here and here. Now next up, guys, we're going to run nails right along the line here. So nail the outer wall to the inner wall, and we're going to nail our side rails in place here as well. I'm going to put all the nails in place now just so you visually see where they go, and we'll nail them in afterwards. So on a super here, we're going to put 3 nails here from the outer wall to the inner wall, and we're going to put 2 and 2 into the outside rails, and the same process on the opposite side. So that's just a visual, you can nail them one at a time. This is just a visual for you guys to see, make it a little easier. Now guys, we're just going to turn the box over and repeat the process on the opposite side. Now guys, the next step with the nails is we have yet to nail the inner wall to the bottom rail here. So we need to put 4 nails along here on both sides. So just going to turn the box to me when I'm doing that. So I'm facing me here, just 4 nails along there. One of the first steps we've done was nail it along the top, so now it's just completing it, nailing it along the bottom. Turn the box over, do the opposite side. Now the last step here guys is putting the frame runners in place, or if you use frame runners. Sorry guys, I'm forgetting to square the box, one of the most important things here. But she's sitting actually perfectly square there. If she needed to be square, when it was daylight, you can turn it on her side slightly and press it one direction or the other to square it up, but it doesn't happen to be sitting square. Doesn't always happen. So now we're going to actually put the runners into place. Just going to turn it around the top rail here, and the top rail and the inner wall is nice and flush here, so the runners will go on nice and handy into place there. Just going to turn it around towards me. The runner sits in here and it's nice and snug. You just use the frame nails you would have used putting the frames together to actually hold the runner in place. I just checked here that it's nice and tight down to the timber before I nailed it, and I'm going to nail the opposite side because I don't want that runner moving up or down as I nail across. I can do the 2 middle ones after that. So just nailing opposite sides, and then I'm going to do the 2 internal ones. Turn her over. Now guys, that's the last one in place. As you can see, both runners are flush with the internal wall. So that's a complete National Super. The exact same process is used in completing a brood chamber, a 14 by 12 and one of our rose boxes. The only difference is when nailing the internal wall to the external wall along here, you may need an extra nail with deeper boxes. The height is the main thing that changes in all of these from here. So that's one National Super box assembled. Hi guys, we're here today to assemble a National Super Hoffman frame. Consists of a top bar, 2 side bars and 2 bottom bars. The Hoffman frame generally has a 45-degree angle on one side, so it allows you to self-space and it stops the bee sticking one frame to the other. We start off with the top bar by removing the wedge. This allows the wax to sit in later on. Sometimes you can just break them out, other times you run the knife along and just clean it so that the wax sits in nicely. Put in the 2 side bars, making sure that the slot internally sits internally so that the wax can slide in later on. Put the frame down for nailing purposes. Just note that the 45-degree angle will be on opposite sides of the frame for self-spacing, and when nailing, you put the nail in on the angle with the 45.
Ramping.
So you can also use a draper ramp pin. It's designed just for using so that your thumbs doesn't get hurt. We also sell them on our website. If you check out the link below, you'll also see them. The head of the nail actually goes into the ramping first and is magnetic, so the nail doesn't fall out on its own. When using it, you just have to put direct pressure down to push it into the frame. If you're not using direct pressure, the nail will bend. As you can see, it pushes us directly flat in. Handy little tool. On the opposite side, we're just going 45. Hammer back. Now it's down to the 2 bottom bars. Some people prefer just to put in one at a time. We just put in both at the same time here. The big thing is to make sure that they're flush on the outside. It's a keynote for getting in wax at times, that they're completely flush on the outside. There goes 4 nails directly into the bottom here. I'm just checking here now to make sure that there's nothing obstructing the wax going in. That a little shaving or anything could be sitting in there, so I'm just checking to make sure there's nothing in it for sliding the wax in. And we go for the 3 longer sides on the loops. And they slide in first. The reason they go in first is you have 3 points to fix the wax into the frame. When you're sliding it down, you bend those 3 loops outwards. And when it's down in place, that's a point there that we put each nail through to hold the wax in place, so that you're using the strength of the wire to hold the wax in place. We put our wedging strip back in here. Just may need a wee press just to make sure it's nice and snug in. And then 3 nails back in there. At each point, the wire is. As you can see, if you drive them straight into the frame, they do not come out the other side. If you nail it downwards at this angle here, there's a chance they'll come through the top bar. So always use a table that you're not worried about for putting frames together on. So that's a National Super frame. This is a SM4. You also get an SM5. It's the exact same frame. The only difference is the width of the top bar. With the wider top bar, cuts down on the amount of brace comb between each frame. So hi guys, today we're going to assemble a National Brood frame. It consists of 5 pieces of top bar, 2 side bars and 2 bottom bars. You start off with the top bar and you remove the wedge. You'll see a piece that's actually not fully supported. You run it along with a knife and that removes it. Sometimes you might have a small shave in here that needs to be taken out. Other times it comes out clean. The reason you'd run that out is so when you put the wax in that it sits perfectly flat against it. The next step here is to put in the side bars. Just make sure that the groove is on the inside because that's what the wax runs on. Pop the 2 of those together. Start off by nailing. This is a Hoffman frame. Each Hoffman frame has an angle on one side of the frame. And they should be opposite one another. This one here and down in there. The idea of that is when they go into the brood chamber, that they'll self-spacing and they're not actually sticking together because the bees can propolize them and all together. So when you do that with the 45, it stops the bees from sticking them together. You can also use our ramping. It's designed for small nails and nailing in awkward places. You start off by putting the head of the nail into it first and it's magnetic and it holds it in place. And then you need direct pressure to push down to put it into place. If you don't put direct pressure down on it, the nail will bend and it'll waver. So Find the piece and just push it directly down, and it pushes it nicely into place. Quite a handy little tool, and a lot of beekeepers would use it. As you can see, it takes quite a lot of direct pressure pushing down on it to put it into place. But alternatively, you can always use the hammer. When you have that done, we put in the bottom bars. Some people only put in one bottom bar at a time. We put in both. Now, and you nail directly down from the bottom here. Always ensure that the bottom bars are flush on the outside here, guys. The idea of that is to make it easier for the wax to slide straight into place. Sometimes you may need to trim the wax ever so slightly. As you produce wax, the temperature can vary, and it can create a sheet that's a millimetre maybe longer than what you need. But if you need to do that, you just run a knife along it and it'll trim it off. On the sheet of wax you'll find 3 loops, and you start by sliding the 3 loops in first. The reason you put them in is you have 3 points then to fix the wax off of. When you get it down, you bend the loops outwards. Continue to slide it down into place. You want this sheet when it's in place as flat as possible so that the bees draw it nice and flat. If it's wavy in the frame, the bees will draw it wavy. When your 3 loops are bent, you put in your wedging slip, push it into place here, and you want to nail straight down on it. The idea is that it keeps it nice and tight against the timber all around. Each point where the loop is, I'm putting a nail directly through it, and that gives it a strength. If it's been spun out on an extractor or anything, that the frame and the wax will hold together as one unit. Now, that's a National Brood Hoffman frame. This is a DN4. You also get a DN5. The only difference between a DN5 and a DN4 is the width of the top bar. It's the same assembly for both. But with a DN5, it cuts down because it's got a wider top bar and the amount of brace comb that's between each frame. So hi guys, we're going to assemble a National Manly frame here today. It consists of a top bar, 2 side bars, and 2 bottom bars. As you can see, there's a groove internally here, and that's for the wax to sit into. We start off with the top bar by removing the wedge. The wedge sometimes snaps out like that, or alternatively we run a knife along it just to clean it. Here. So when we have that removed, we start by putting in the side bars, making sure that the slot is internally for the wax to run on. So if we put in both of those, we set the frame down, put a nail straight through. We turn it over and we just repeat the process on the opposite side. The next step is the bottom bars. Some people put 1 in place, others put 2 in place when assembling. They should slot nicely into place. snugly into place. Repeat by the nails, if it's your first time using them, can be quite fiddly. It's a little thing that just takes a little time to get used to. One of the reasons we use such a small hammer is just so that it doesn't get the fingers. As you can see, that's the 4 of those in place. You may have a little breakout on the inside at times. Just to make sure that the channel here is clean, you can just put your knife in for the wax to run in. When you get your seat, you'll see it wired here. The first thing you do is the 3 longest points slides in to the frame. And when it's down, we bend it ever so slightly outwards. And the idea of that is when we put our wedge and bar back into place here, the wedge and bar goes in here, and at each point that the loop is, that's where we put in a needle. When we put the nail back in there, it holds the wax and stops it from breaking out when we're using our extractor. Just one key note. That wax slipped perfectly into place, but from time to time a sheet may be a millimetre or 2 longer, and it just may need a wee trim. You want your wax as flat as possible within the frame. If it's wavy, the bees will continue to draw it wavy. Alright, that's a complete National Manly frame with wax and all. So hi guys, now that we've assembled all our boxes, frames and wax, I'm just going to run through how a National hive goes together. So we start off with a standard 4-inch deep mesh floor. This floor's got a Corex tray underneath for inspecting varroa. The white tray makes it easier to see the varroa. Standard entrance block with mesh floor. Next step is National brood chamber. This brood chamber sits here. You can see all the frames internally and the wax within them. Also the runners are there. If you square that up nicely in front of the hive, sit there with the entrance block. Next step is our queen excluder that prevents the queen going right the way up and down where we store our honey. And we've got a super here, framed for the same process with the wax down the middle. We actually have the option of this hive pack coming with 1 or 2 supers. And it's the same with the kits, you have the option of them coming with 1 or 2 supers. So the supers are both the exact same with the frames and wax. Sit here. And on the top end of the roof, you'd actually sit your crown board. This crown board is also used for extracting honey in time. And you use these quarter bee escapes when you're removing the honey off the hive. So it sits on top at the moment, and that actually creates a barrier between the roof, inside the roof, and at the tops of the boxes. If you didn't have this crown board, they would stick the roof direct to the top of the supers. So this is quite important at the top end of the hive. It stops them from sticking them with wax or with propolis or anything. Throughout the year when you're harvesting your honey, you'd move this down under with the quarter bee escapes. And our standard 7-inch deep roof sits way down over one of the supers. That's our complete hive pack. As I mentioned, you have the option of 1 or 2 supers when buying this hive pack, and with our kits. So hi guys, today we're just going to look at a few of our different options on mouse guards. We've got 3 here to look at. So this is the galvanized metal mouse guard, and it's 460 millimeters long. There's a couple of holes here, smaller holes, that you can actually nail it in place, and that cuts down on the entrance side, so you can use that with an entrance block or without an entrance block. The second option here is our plastic mouse guard, which runs across here. As you can see, it's shorter, and you just screw it to your brood chamber through any of those holes and line it up, and it's got the mouse excluder here on the end. That's 415 millimeters long. The third one here is our adjustable mouse guard. So you can open it out fully here, or you can close it in to close it off completely. This can actually be attached to your entrance block, or it can be attached to your brood chamber, depending on what you want to do. And you can close this right down, close it off and it's still ventilated, or leave it open with 1 or 2 spaces. That's 3 options within our mouse guards. So hi guys, we're going to have a quick look at some of our queen excluders. We have 2 different options here. This is our Langstroth queen excluder, which measures 415 millimeters by 500 millimeters, which is 20 inches by 16 1/4. It's a flat plastic queen excluder. It's very simple to lay in place and very easy to use. You just lay it down into place and it's quite easy to use. That there's for the Langstroth hive. We do have the equivalent here for the national commercial rose in 14 by 12. This queen excluder measures 460 millimeters square, which is 18 inches square. Like that again, very easy and very gentle on the bees with the plastic. We've got our flat slotted metal queen excluder, which is pressed out of galvanized steel. It measures 460 millimeters square by 460, and like that it's 18 inches square. The only thing I notice about these queen excluders is because they're pressed out of steel, flat steel, they can actually be a little bit sharper on one side than they are on the other. One side is generally very smooth and the other side is a little bit sharper. So for me, I feel sometimes it does a little bit of damage on bees' wings. Next up, we've got the round bar queen excluders. These are both the same, it just happens to be one is framed and one is unframed. So this one here is 435 millimeters square, and you can frame this yourself or it'll sit internally within the hive. And this other option here is it's actually framed, which is 460 millimeters square, which is 18 inches square again. The advantage of this is that the bees can pass up and down easily through it. It's got quite long slots and is very, very gentle on the bees. It also has bee spaces built into it, which allows them better access across on top and below the queen excluder. Hi guys, we've got a few different options here. We've got a plastic queen excluder scraper, and we've got the metal queen excluder scraper. The plastic one here actually does both the round bar queen excluder, sits on the slot there in the round bar, or it does the plastic on the opposite side here. So it's set up with the plastic for running across and cleaning. So depending on which queen excluder you're using, you can use this plastic one for both. The metal one with the timber handle is generally only used for the flat slotted queen excluder to clean it, or the round bar queen excluder. Sits in on the bars and runs along the bars for cleaning it on both sides. So that's the 2 options for plastic queen excluder scrapers. Thank you. So hi everybody, this is our 4-frame manual extractor. This is our tangential 4-frame. This extractor will actually do 4 commercial super frames, 4 national super frames, 4 Langstroth super frames. It'll do 2 national brood frames, 2 commercial, 2 rows, 2 Langstroth and 2 14 by 12. If you see internally here, I lift off the lids, they remove quite easily. And you can see from here that this is 2 national on this side, and we have just 2 commercial on the opposite side for demonstration purposes. The unit sits here on a small settling stand that is sold separate here, and the advantages of that is at any stage you can set up to a 15-litre bucket underneath for when you're spinning out your honey. So hi everybody, this is our 8 frame minimum line tangential extractor. It's stainless steel acid resistant with a plastic valve. This extractor will do up to 8 national super frames, 6 commercial super frames and 6 Lancashire super frames. It'll do 4 national brood frames, 4 commercial, 4 rows, 4 14 by 12 and 4 Lancashire brood frames. When you buy this unit, it actually comes flat packed, so you'd want to allow about an hour to an hour and a half to put it together. The beauty with the legs and all here is that it allows for a 15 litre bucket underneath. So whilst you're extracting, you can have your tap slightly open and it's spinning straight out in. If we zoom in here, you'll actually see at the moment it's 6 commercial super manly frames that's in here, but it does hold up to 8 national super frames. It's controlled on a dimmer switch, so you can turn up the speed depending on the density of the honey. So hi everybody, this is our 20 frame classic range radial extractor. She's stainless steel acid resistant with a stainless steel valve which will allow for a 20 litre bucket underneath. The beauty with that is you can have the tap slightly open when you're spinning out your frames and it's filling the bucket at the same time. This unit is side mounted control panel with the motor underneath which allows better access when loading and unloading the unit. You'll see here from the frames internally, this unit will do up to 20 national super frames. She'll do 12 manly frames, 12 commercial manly frames, 12 rows, and she'll also do 8 national brood frames. On the side here with the control panel, you'll see she'll actually build up from speed 1 right the way up to speed 10. Gradually building up, and like that you can take the unit down gradually. She's got built-in sensors within the lid that automatically stops when you open and stop her here. One of the big advantages with this unit though is that you can spin out in your apiary or you can spin with the 230 mains, so she'll run off both 12 volt and 230 volt. It's handy for a lot of guys who are spinning out in containers and different things that they can connect it to their car battery. This unit will also take tangential supports. You can see one of our other videos on tangential supports to see how they actually clip into the unit. Everybody, these are our tangential supports. They fit into both our 12 frame and 20 frame extractor. They're sold in a pair, and they add in an idea of them is to save your brood frames when spinning them out. There can be quite a lot of pressure on brood frames and they're more prone to breaking or the wax breaking out of the frame when spinning. So a lot of beekeepers would use tangential supports for that reason. On this wee video we'll show you how they actually clip in, and you can put up to 4 into most units. If you check this out here, they drop down in, and as they drop down in you let it fall outwards and then it just clips in on the bottom, and that's it sitting in place. When that's in place we can easily drop in a national brood frame. So on the 12 frame unit she'll do both national brood frames and rose brood frames. So hi everybody, this is our settling stand. It actually is 300 millimeters high from bottom to top, and it'll suit a tank of up to 450 millimeters. That's the settling tank from 30 litres up to 70 litres any of our tanks. It also works with any of our 4 frame manual extractors if you want to get them a little bit extra height off the ground. They generally come flat pack in a box like this, and it's just self-assembly. You probably allow about 20 minutes in total to assemble the unit. So hi guys, today we're going to look at some different options of filters that we do. So you've got the uncapping bag, which is generally used in an extractor to spin out cappings. You'd hang it in place of a frame. And they're generally used in a tangential extractor because you need support on the outside of the bag to actually allow it to spin correctly within the extractor. You can actually keep it open, you put all your cappings in, and you can spin out your cappings to dry them out and then use the wax at a later stage. The next option we've got here is a nylon strainer. It's a double strainer. So you've got a coarse strain at the top and a much finer one at the bottom. That'll suit anything on a bucket from about 220 millimeters right the way up to about 330 millimeters. Next you have stainless steel double strainer, which will open out to suit nearly any bucket up to about 390 millimeters, and you can close it back in. Like that, it's got a double strainer, this coarse one on the top end, much finer on the bottom. Next up, we've got our conical strainer and stand. You can place that over any bucket, and the legs are actually profiled here at the end to open it out to suit any style bucket. The advantage with this one is, as the wax builds up on the bottom, the honey continues to flow from above. The other basic option we've got here, people use it for very fine filtering, is a nylon cloth. Very fine nylon cloth that comes as one complete sheet, and it's actually 750 millimeters square. In fact, there's nylon, you can actually wash it and reuse it again. So, hi guys, today we're going to look at uncapping forks. This is our plastic uncapping fork. It's a unique design. It's actually got a little point in the centre here, because as you know, when you're uncapping your honey, your hands get slippy and sticky and all, so it helps you stop slipping off the fork. And as you can see here overall, the needles are cranked at the end, and the idea of that is when you're running along the front of the frame uncapping, that the whole fork isn't actually buried in your honey. And you want to run your fork along like this and scrape your cappings off. You don't want to actually do this and drag it along the front of the frame, because you end up mixing your cappings through your honey, which makes it much harder to harvest and get it through the filters later on. So you rise the cappings off each frame. It makes it a lot easier on the overall process than it does actually scraping the frame and mixing it. So you just run it across it a few times, you turn your frame, and you actually repeat the process on the opposite side. So hi guys, this is an uncapping roller. It's designed to run across the outside of the frame and uncap. The only issue I have with this product overall is when you're running across the outside of the frames to uncap, you end up mixing your cappings through your honey. So I prefer to use this to loosen any honey that's in frames that's much heavier, much harder to get out of the cell.
Yeah.
So if you're actually running along a frame here, it's much easier to loosen honey with this device here, like heavier honey, like heather. If you're spinning out a small quantity, you can loosen this, your honey, by repeating that process a few times on the frame. Overall, if it's used just for uncapping, you tend to clog your filters quite a bit more, because all your cappings wax has just been brushed across the outside of the frame, and it just tends to clog your filters more. So guys, today we're going to look at some of the options that we do in uncapping knives. This is our standard uncapping knife. It features a blade of 375 millimeters in length, and you can quite easily run across any frame and uncap with that and scrape it into any tank. Next up is our 230 volt uncapping knife. The overall blade distance is 250 millimeters, which is more than sufficient as well for anything we do with national or commercial frames. And the third option here is our 12 volt uncapping knife, which can be used to spinning out an out apiary using a 12 volt battery or anything like that. And the blade length here is about 230 millimeters overall. So all three are correct in length for anything we do here in Ireland overall uncapping frames. So hi guys, today we're going to look at our uncapping trays with sieves. You have a few different options in it. You've got the 100mm deep, 200mm and 300mm deep. They all come with a stand overall, and outside of that, as you can see, each one of them changes in height. So depending on how much capping you're doing is how much space you need underneath. The other option you'll see with the 300mm is it has a tap on the side of it for pouring out any honey inside. Otherwise you dump it out of these. But they all come with the same stand overall. And as you can see, whilst you're uncapping here, you can sit your frames in behind whilst your spinner is spinning out the honey. So you've time to uncap 4 to 5 frames easily while you're spinning out your honey. And you can uncap them here, turn them over, uncap the opposite side and stack them in behind. So you can work through a few frames while your extractor's spinning out the honey. But they all have this option. They all come with a stand and all with them. The only difference, as I'm saying, is the height in all three, and the 300 milliliter one has a tap on the end of it. So hi guys, today we're going to look at our 300 milliliter uncap and trayless pipe. On the front end here you see you've got a tap for pouring out your honey at the end, and the spipe here can be threaded out and reversed back in underneath to put it away safely and securely. The advantage of this is when you suspend your frame on it, you can set it up here and you can actually spin it for uncapping. So you can spin it and uncap both sides quite easily and scrape them into the tank and move on to the next frame. It's a much faster way without having to put down the fork or the knife when uncapping honey.